Welcome back to the Bears Baseball Network. We have the BWL Draft for the 2025-2026 BWL season. Very excited to be here. Robbie Floyd, joined alongside by Andrew Engelken here for the BWL Draft. Starting with the varsity draft here. This is the top 18U players, probably a lot of the top 16U players, and maybe even a 50U player too in this varsity draft. Very, very excited to get things going with the throwbacks. Head coach Rob Floyd, another one of the coaches, Jackson Bell, in the draft room here. And the varsity draft, the throwbacks are on the clock, and we'll see as their pick looks like it's coming right now. And Andrew Engelken, a lot of top players in this league. What are you thinking here in the early rounds? Who do you think is going off the board early?
I think the only obvious choice is Ben Combs here. He's a great pitcher and a great hitter. He kind of brings the whole package.
Well, the throwbacks pick is in, and it is Ben Combs going off the board here. And like you said, Andrew, when you're looking at these early round picks, what you're looking for is two-way players, guys who can pitch and hit. Sometimes in the BWL draft, you see guys who are one-way players. Even if they're a great hitter, sometimes you see them fall down the draft board. So the throwback's going with the two-way guy in Ben Combs. And with the way the draft looks this year, I think you're going to need 5 good pitchers. So when you're looking at this draft, Andrew, who are some of the top pitchers in this 18U draft, in your opinion?
I see Ben Combs. I see Andrew Willeret. I see Jaden Coleman, also a very good option here.
Yeah, those are some of the top guys, and especially Willeret and Coleman are two-way guys. And then maybe the 6U talent, Lucas Wilburn, Mason Geddes, a couple of two-way guys. This is the Pinstripes pick here in the first round. With the second pick of the first round, it is going to be Wyatt Poore who comes in for the Pinstripes. So Wyatt, not necessarily known as a two-way guy in terms of the pitching, but he has been on the mound before. But with this pick, you get a very good defensive catcher. You get obviously one of the best bats in the draft. I really like this pick. And we'll see what are the Pinstripes going to pair this with. And then I'll ask you about both these picks, Andrew. It's going to be Andrew Willeret. Wow. So you get two big-time bats. You get a big-time catcher and a big-time arm. Pringle, what do you think about the first round here for the Pinstripes?
I mean, these are two just absolute amazing bats. Two guys who've been at it before in BWL. Just great picks.
Yeah, Andrew Willeret, one of a former Rookie of the Year, a former MVP. Wyatt Poore, of course, really one of the best BWL players. He was kind of discovered in the BWL. Was Wyatt Poore a couple years ago. And the throwback's going to go again with a big-time hitter in Landon Nickerson on the second pick of the second round. Again, sometimes you see some of these big-time bats fall down the board a little bit, but Landon Nickerson, a big bat, and Ben Combs, Landon Nickerson is the heart of this order, Andrew. Can't really go wrong with that. For me, now I'm looking at some of the top pitchers in the drafts, the throwbacks with their third-round pick. Could you see a Jaden Coleman here? Maybe even a Mason Geddes, a Lucas Parrish. Who comes here for the throwbacks? Looks like they're still deliberating. Again, I think you're going to need 5 top pitchers at least. So when you're looking through this draft,
take a pitcher here.
Yeah, I think Jaden Coleman to me seems like the obvious pick, but maybe you go with a Mason Geddes. Maybe you go with a Lucas Wilburn, a guy who's going to help you really on all sides of the ball. They do already have a first baseman. They have their corner infield. To me, Jaden Coleman seems like a slam dunk right here. You get you a shortstop, gets you probably your top arm, and also gets you a big bat in the lineup.
I like Mason Geddes here, though, Mason Geddes, top strikeout leader this year.
Yeah, same idea. Mason Geddes, big-time arm, shortstop, can play the middle infield, and also, obviously, the big bat as well, as we see the throwbacks still deliberating on their third-round pick. And when you're looking at the board here, some of the later pitchers, KJ is often in the BWL, try to get big hitters early and then restock the pitching staff. So when you're looking at some of these guys who could be later-round pitchers, I really like Colin Zufall, Carter Abernathy potentially later, and even a guy like Colin Sandler, who has shown flashes of being a great pitcher. Maybe you can get away with drafting some hitters early before you go to the bottom of the pitching draft. And it is going to be the first 16U player off the board. It's Lucas Wilburn who goes off the board here. So again, big-time bat. You really love the lineup here. Ben Combs, Landon Nickerson, Lucas Wilburn for the throwbacks. And you get a guy who's a very solid arm as well. Jaden Coleman, obviously availability, potentially a question for him. How often is he going to be on the field every single week? Maybe a little scared of that of the throwbacks. They go with Lucas Wilburn, who is always reliable. Now the Pinstripes, a chance to respond here at the third and fourth round. And I got to say, you're looking at this draft. I don't necessarily consider Andrew Willeret the ace of the staff. So if you can get a guy like Jaden Coleman or Mason Geddes, I think the Pinstripes would be looking to do so here. Who else? Who are some of the big hitters you see on the draft board right now?
I still see I still see a Conrad Kaminsky. I see
guys like Joey Burgess still on the board, for 16U guys. And then obviously some 18U scout guys still on the board. And it is going to be a shortstop and a pitcher. Mason Geddes comes off the board for the Pinstripes. I love that pick. Obviously, Mason, I think, has the potential to be the best pitcher in this draft. The offense, obviously, very high ceiling. And defensively, he can fill in on this Pinstripe team. Right now, you're looking at it. This is a team that could really use some defense. Andrew Willeret, he can play the infield a little bit, but mostly known for his outfield play. Wyatt Poore, obviously, is a catcher, so you could use some infielders. And the Pinstripe's going to get another one here with Jaden Coleman. So Jaden Coleman comes off the board, and you're really starting to like how this Pinstripe pitching staff's coming aboard. Andrew Willeret, Mason Geddes, Jaden Coleman. What do you think about that pitching staff right there?
I mean, that's an elite pitching staff, man. That's a great three-man rotation right there.
Yeah, when you're looking at the championship game, which is a lot of times, KJ said before, he's looking for the championship game. You really only need 3 guys for that game, and KJ, I think, has got his 3 championship game pitchers potentially there. So now back to the throwbacks. Ben Combs, Landon Nickerson, Lucas Wilburn already on this team. To me, I think you got to be looking for a middle infielder. You got to be looking for probably another arm. As promising as Ben Combs is as a pitcher, and same thing with Lucas Wilburn, I don't necessarily consider either of them the ace of the staff in the varsity league. When you're looking at other pitchers, I mean, Lucas Parrish to me comes out. I think Carter Abernathy, a high ceiling. He's probably a later round pick. Even got Lucas Velchek could come off the board here. Lucas Velchek's been very good in the BWL in the last couple of years, especially on the pitching side. So we'll see what the throwbacks decide to do. You're starting to, it's not completely out yet, but you're starting to run out of those big two-way guys who can do both. So we'll see if the throwbacks try to snatch up maybe a big bat and a big arm, or maybe even 2 big arms here. See what the throwbacks opt to do. A lot of deliberation on that side. When you're looking at some of the kind of big bats still in this draft, you got guys like Parker Ells, you got guys like Conrad Kaminsky from the 6U side, and of course Evan Lancaster hasn't gone yet. He's a guy, pitching's probably a question mark, may not be able to pitch for the majority of the BWL season, but in terms of hitting, he was one of the best hitters in the 8U league last year.
Walked it off for them.
Yeah, you can only imagine. I mean, Evan Lancaster is probably the best bat yet to go when you're looking at some of these top hitters. To me, it's Evan Lancaster. Really, Ivan Saxon is a big bat that hasn't gone yet. To me, those are the best 2 hitters left, is Evan Lancaster and Ivan Saxon. So maybe pairing one of those 2 big bats with a big arm, like a Velchek, like maybe a Colin Zufall or a Carter Abernathy, like a Lucas Parrish. If you can do one of those, I can see that happening. That's another guy here. As it's actually not going to be an arm. They're not going to... Well, actually, this guy has pitched a little bit, but not necessarily known for his pitching. It's going to be Ty Zazueta. So Ty Zazueta goes off the board. The throwbacks obviously responding with their catcher, Wyatt Poore being on the Pinstripes. I am a little bit concerned with the throwbacks pitching staff right now. Not necessarily a certified ace. The lineup definitely looks good. When you're talking about Combs, Nickerson, Zazueta, and Wilburn, very strong lineup. But I do have some concerns about the pitching staff. But like I said, you can potentially wait on pitching because there's a lot of promising guys later in the draft that could fill in on your pitching staff. So we'll see what the throwbacks decide to do here with the first pick of the 5th round. So far the draft, Ben Combs, Wyatt Poore, Andrew Willeret, Landon Nickerson, Lucas Wilburn, Mason Geddes, Jaden Coleman, and Ty Zazueta on off the board. Another guy you were mentioning, Pringle, Miles Schwacker.
Yeah.
Again, not a pitcher, but a guy who, big-time bat, fantastic glove. Definitely a guy who could help either one of these teams.
Great bat.
Yeah, big-time bat is Miles Schwacker, so I wouldn't be surprised to see him go here pretty soon. To me, Evan Lancaster, if you're not going to take a pitcher here, I would take Evan Lancaster. I think he's the best hitter left in the draft, in my opinion. When you're looking at some of the other bats, I mean, it's really Evan and Ivan. Evan and Ivan are the best 2 bats left in this draft.
100% agree.
And then you're looking at guys like Joey Burgess, who's probably the 3rd best bat in the draft. And then you got Lucas Velchek, potential 2-way guy. Lucas Parrish, a potential 2-way guy. But to me here, I'm either taking Evan Lancaster or I'm taking a big arm if I'm the throwbacks. We'll see what they decide to do here. Some of the guys, if we look ahead, I mentioned some of the late round pitchers in this draft. Who do you think could be some late round bats? If, KJ's building a very good pitching staff, if he's going to take a bat late, who could you see as being an impact bat later in the draft?
I really like Logan Payne, man.
Logan Payne, definitely the potential to be a big time bat. Had a good BWL last year. Guys like maybe even Evan Little, I think, has had his moments in the BWL. And it is going to be Lucas Parrish coming off the board here. A very big arm for the throwbacks. And I think potential is a two-way guy. Lucas Parrish, definitely known more so for his pitching. But when you talk about the bat, a 400 hitter, 500 OBP, this is a guy who definitely I think is trending upward with the bat.
Definitely.
So very, very exciting pick there for the throwbacks. Back over to the pinstripes, the second pick of the 5th round. And when you're looking at this draft right now, Geddes, Coleman, Willeret, Poor, maybe another big bat. Obviously, probably need a first baseman at some point. But they're going to go the hitting route. It's going to be Joey Burgess who comes off the board here for the pinstripes. Gives you a backup catcher. If Wyatt Poor does get some innings on the mound, gives you a backup catcher there. Joey Burgess, a very solid catcher by the plate, but also a big bat. I think this lineup's starting to come around, and we'll see here. And interesting, this is the right age I thought KJ was going to go, but I thought it was going to be a different player. It's going to be Lucas Velchek who comes off the board. Veli, definitely a big-time arm. The bat, I think, definitely has the potential to be very, very substantial as well for Lucas Velchek. I got to be surprised. Maybe these coaches know something I don't. I'm surprised Evan Lancaster's still here. I know he's probably going to be limited, defensively early in the season. But the bat, to me, I think Evan Lancaster is probably a better hitter than the majority of the guys that have been taken really since round 2 or 3. So I'm surprised to see Evan Lancaster still on the board here. As you're looking down, another guy that Ivan Saxon is kind of that same boat. Really not going to do much for you defensively, but a big-time bat. And there it is. It is going to be Evan Lancaster who comes off the board. So only a matter of time before that pick came off. And I think Evan Lancaster in the 6th round is a steal for the throwbacks. So now as you look, you're starting to get into the later part of the draft where you're kind of having to make a choice. Do you want a big arm? Do you want a big bat? Do you want maybe someone who's not as good at both but can do both? Who do you go for here? If it's your pick, if you're on the board here, I know you're on the pinstripes coaching staff at the younger ages, but if you're on the board here for the throwbacks, who do you take?
I want to take Schwacker, man.
Miles Schwacker definitely, I think, is a guy who should be going in this range. When you're looking at, I think
he's the most underrated hitter.
The throwbacks could use an infielder. The throwbacks, I know Lucas Wilburn plays some middle infield in the BWL last year, but he's not traditionally a shortstop or second baseman. You could use a big-time infielder, and definitely Miles Schwacker can do that. The pitching staff, I think, is still a little bit concerning, but like I said, there's a lot of guys later in the draft who are big-time pitchers. We'll see what the throwbacks have to do here. Conrad Comiskey still on the board as a guy who could potentially be a big impact player. And as I'm looking, maybe the route the throwbacks are going where they're waiting for some pitchers late in the draft that might end up working out. I do think having a maybe low ceiling but a lot of different guys pitching staff is good for the regular season, but how's that going to hold them in the championship game when you got to have an ace? Because the championship game, you're going to be seeing Andrew Willeret, Mason Geddes, and Jaden Coleman for the pinstripes. Lucas Velch, this pinstripe pitching staff is really, really dangerous right now. So we'll see how the throwbacks respond. When you're looking at the throwbacks pitching staff, obviously Lucas Parrish, Lucas Wilburn, Ben Combs, potentially getting Evan Lancaster on the mound maybe later in the season is what you're counting on there.
I still see a big pitcher on this board in Colin Sufal.
Colin Sufal, definitely. And Carter Abernathy, I think, are both some pitchers you can get later in the draft. It is going to be Miles Schwacker who goes off the board.
Yeah.
So maybe the throwbacks, taking your advice there, Pringle, taking a big-time bat, Miles Schwacker, a guy who is very, very good defensively. Typically a third baseman, but since you have Ben Combs, you can put either one of them at short, and I think you're very happy with that. For me right now, when I'm looking at the throwbacks team, the pitching staff, maybe just a little bit shallow right now. But like you said, Colin Zufall, Carter Abernathy, even the Sandler boys, there's Conrad Comiskey. There's lots of pitchers you can add later in this draft. So we'll see how that works out for the throwbacks. On the other side, the pinstripes, looking at this draft right now, you got some defense with Jaden Coleman and Mason Geddes. Obviously, the pitching staff very, very strong. The lineup right now, Wyatt Poor, Andrew Willeret, Mason Geddes, Jaden Coleman, Joey Burgess, Lucas Velchek. I do think the throwbacks have the better lineup, and KJ's going to try to remedy that right here with Ivan Saxon, a big-time bat. I do think Ivan was the best hitter left on the board, and Ivan Saxon goes here in the 7th round. Yeah, I think that's a good value pick there. I think, again, you see this sometimes in the BWL where these big hitters kind of slide down. I think Evan Lancaster in the 6th round and Ivan Saxon in the 7th round are both home run values for me. So I'm going to ask you the same thing here, Pringle. You're on the board here for the pinstripes pick. Who are you taking here?
I think their pitching staff is already great. Maybe looking for another big bat.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at a guy, like I said, Evan Little. Probably a little early to take Evan Little, but he's a guy potentially as a big-time bat. Alex DeMertzes has played well in this league. Atticus Slocum is a big bat. And Pringle, maybe not necessarily known for a big bat, but definitely a big arm. Colin Zufall goes off the board here. I think there's potential in Colin Zufall as a hitter. What were Colin Zufall's offensive numbers this season?
Batted .279 with a .384 OBP.
Okay, so again, a guy who not necessarily known for his bat, but I think could have some upside.
There's a lot there.
Yeah, I think there's some potential there, but definitely getting something good with the pitching staff there. The Throwbacks 8th round pick is in. It's Caden McBride who comes in. Sometimes these left-handed throwing outfielders, they get kind of buried in these drafts. I think Caden McBride, a guy who has put up some respectable offensive numbers. .371 hitter in the regular season. Obviously, a guy who I think is going to get on base, and maybe a little bit of an underrated thing. In a BWL, you can courtesy run for anyone. And Caden McBride, a very good base runner. So that probably an underrated kind of asset of his game. The Throwbacks back on the clock here with the 9th round pick. I would love to see, Colin Zufall just went off the board. I'd love to see some of these other late round pitchers get picked up here by the Throwbacks. I think they could use a Carter Abernathy, maybe one of the Sandler boys. I think there's several pitchers they could grab here. And we'll see as their pick comes in. It is going to be Carter Abernathy who comes in for the Throwbacks. So I think this Throwback staff is starting to look like it could be pretty solid. Caden McBride, a pitcher as well. Caden McBride this season, 45 strikeouts, 22 walks. Very solid pitcher is Caden McBride. So yeah, I think this Throwbacks pitching staff starting to come around. I think the biggest question mark for me is going to be that championship game. Who takes the mound? But maybe this is a case where the regular season, you use that as kind of finding who your championship pitcher is going to be. So we'll see how the Throwbacks end up working out the pitching staff. We're back over here to the Pinstripes as we get into the later rounds of the varsity draft. The 2nd pick of the 9th round. KJ's walking it up here. And it's going to be Seth Mullen, another big infielder. When you're talking about an infield of Mason Geddes, Jaden Coleman, and Seth Mullen, defensively, this Pinstripe team is super solid. Still without a true first baseman. The Pinstripes don't have a true first baseman yet, but I think there's several options you could pick up later in the draft. But Seth Mullen's certainly a guy, good bat. He even had some innings on the mound. Speaking of first baseman, it's Evan Little who goes next.
Wow.
So Evan Little, the Pinstripes. And I've said this before. You look at Evan Little, and you don't necessarily expect it from him, but he's actually a very good defensive first baseman. I mean, he's one of the better first basemen you can get strictly defensively, and we'll see. Obviously, he's had some good moments as a hitter as well. The Throwback's going to grab Atticus Slocum, a guy who can do a little bit of everything. Atticus, I think, is a perfect example of a guy who's not necessarily a great hitter, but he's a good hitter. Not necessarily a great pitcher, but he's a good pitcher. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily a great fielder, but he's a good fielder. He can do a little bit of everything for you. I think that's a good pick there for the Throwbacks. Atticus Slocum goes off the board here in the 10th round. 3 rounds left here in the varsity draft. Remember, if you are not drafted here, over 140 players got chances in the BWL last season, so almost 40 guys picked up that weren't drafted last year, so certainly can still get picked up after the draft. Any 16U player that doesn't get drafted in the varsity draft is eligible for the JV draft as well. So keep that in mind. You're probably looking at some of these 16U guys that don't get drafted here as the number 1 overall pick in the JV draft. Throwbacks deliberating. A guy who I've always thought very highly of and I thought had some big potential is Colin Sandler, a guy who I think if he puts it all together could be a very, very impact player. And the Throwbacks are going to go a similar route. They're going to go with Max Sandler. For me, Max, I think, is much, much safer than Colin. He's a guy who you know is going to throw strikes. You know is going to play good defense. You know what type of at-bats he's going to give you. They're going to be solid, not going to hit a grand slam, but he's also not going to strike out on 3 pitches. Very solid at-bats. To me, Colin's more of that upside pick. He's a guy who he could be the worst player in this league, but he could be one of the best values here late in the draft. And we'll see if the Pinstripes maybe pick up a Colin Sandler. Some other guys, Conrad Comiskey, Jack Kester is, again, those left-handed throwers sometimes get devalued in BWL with no outfield. I think Jack Kester could go here late in this draft. A guy I know KJ liked last year, Henry Wiersmuller. He could go here. That's another catcher. Another guy who could potentially pitch. A lot of options here. As the pick comes in, and it is going to be Jack Kester. And I'll tell you what, this is a guy who, if we were playing an outdoor league, if it was an outdoor league here for the BWL, Jack Kester would be probably 4 rounds earlier. But because it's indoors, there's no outfield, and sometimes the BWL field can punish left-handed batters, he goes down low here. But if Jack Kester figures out a huge pick, what do you think about... Actually, I'm going to ask you about both picks here, Pringle, as we get the next pick here. It's going to be Dane Pastrana, kind of the same thing. Big-time outfielder. What do you think about this little 1-2 punch here in the 11th and 12th round with Jack Kester and Dane Pastrana?
These are two guys that swing absolutely out of their shoes. They're going to strike out a lot, but if they get a hold of it, they're going to smoke it. And it's hard playing in these type of leagues with them.
Yeah, I mean, Jack Kester, again, he pulls a lot of fly balls. It doesn't always necessarily work in the BWL for left-handed batters, but if he can figure it out, could look like a steal. We could be laughing that Jack Kester went in the 11th round. But again, we mentioned this Caden McBride. Dane Pastrana and Jack Kester, 2 amazing base runners as well.
Yeah. And
that can be a big part of the BWL when you can courtesy run for anybody. So we're in here. This is the last 2 picks for the throwbacks, the 12th and 13th round for them, and then the Pinstripes will end off the draft here with their pick. I think Colin Sandler's got to go with these last 3 picks for sure. I think you could see a guy like Connor Comiskey, a guy like Parker Ells could go here. Henry Wiersmuller, Ethan Portell. Some good players still on the board. Looking at the throwbacks, Max Sandler, very good infielder. Miles Schwacker, very good infielder. Ben Combs, obviously. Land Nixon. So you have your starting infield, but really, once these guys pitch, who's filling in these extra spots? I would take Colin Sandler and then one of these good defenders, maybe like an Alex DeMertzes. But they're going to go a little bit of a different direction. They're going Henry Wiersmuller. So they get another catcher. Henry Wiersmuller, kind of like we said about Atticus Slocum, a guy who can do a little bit of everything. Not necessarily great in any facet of the game, but good in all facets of the game. So I don't mind that pick. That's not who I would have gone with, but I don't mind that pick at all. And then with the last pick here, interesting. The throwbacks are going to go with Ethan Portell. So Ethan Portell comes off the board. He's another one of those guys, a utility infielder. I don't mind that pick at all. He's a guy who can get on the mound if you need it. I know Rob has been impressed with his at-bats on the scout team the last couple weeks, and now we're at the last pick of the varsity draft. So remember, if you do not get drafted here, you are a free agent.
Right?
You can get picked up.
Hey, I'm touching something. Hold on.
Any 16U player not drafted here is eligible for the JV League, which comes up next. Listen, if I'm talking about the last pick of the draft, I'm going for high ceiling, Your 13th pick is probably getting cut in 5 weeks anyway. You might as well go and shoot for the moon. I would take Colin Sandler. That would be my pick. I mean, I know I'm a little biased. I like this guy a lot.
Bang.
And it is going to be Colin Sandler. I think that's a great pick. I mean, this is a guy who, in BWL last year, he had 12 strikeouts to 1 walk. He only had 2 outings, but in those 2 outings, he was absolutely dominant. I think that's a great pick. I think KJ... Whether he ends up keeping Colin Sandler for the season, or you give him 4 weeks and he's not performing, you cut him, you pick up somebody else. I think that's a great pick. I think Cage is going to be happy with that one. That's going to do it here for the varsity draft. Do not go anywhere. We're going to be right back here in a few minutes for the JV League draft. We'll be right back here on the Bears Baseball Network. Welcome back to BWL Draft Night here at the Cave, and we are here for the JV League Draft, the second draft of 4 we're doing tonight. The varsity draft just concluded, and once again, any 16U player or below that was not taken in the varsity draft is eligible here for the JV draft. So when you're looking at some guys who didn't get drafted, to me, Parker Ells, Conrad Comiskey, those are the big names that stand out. Logan Payne, I think, is going to get taken pretty early here. And then you're looking at a guy like Owen Wybrecht, like Landon Portell, and when do Rudy and Harrison go? Those are the big question marks for me. The Pinstripes have the first pick in the JV draft. I'm suspecting here either a Conrad Comiskey, a Parker Ells, or an Owen Wybrecht would be my guess. When you're looking at two-way players, Conrad's probably the best two-way player of that group. And we'll see what route he decides to go. And wow! I'll tell you what, with all the players I just mentioned as first-round picks, KJ is going to shoot for the moon. It's Rudy Montenegro Langley going first in the JV draft. And I'll tell you what, this guy definitely shooting for the moon here. Rudy, again, he gets to use a drop 5 bat. So is Rudy with a drop 5 better than Parker and Conrad and Owen Wybrecht with a drop 3? Maybe.
Yes.
Maybe. And look at this. We're 2 picks in. And no 16 players gone yet. It's Owen Wybrecht for the throwbacks. Owen Wybrecht, and they wrote MVP on the bottom of it. Owen Wybrecht, the first-round pick here for the throwbacks. So now I just think whoever picks Conrad or Parker is getting a fantastic value. When you're talking about two-way players, I think Rudy has pitching potential. Owen has pitching potential, but to me, Conrad Comiskey is probably the best two-way player in this draft. Parker Ells, a very solid two-way player as well. Harrison Blebaum, big-time two-way player. I think those are the next 3 players off the draft. Landon Portell, obviously, coming after that. And we'll see what the throwbacks go here. They're going to go with Parker Ells. Already loving the defense for the throwbacks. Owen Wybrecht, Parker Ells, 2 very, very good defenders. The pitching staff, Parker Ells, a very solid pitcher. Could be one of the best ones in this draft, but maybe not necessarily the every week, every inning reliable type guy you could look for. But I do think Parker is going to be one of the best hitters in this draft, 100%. So now the Pinstripes are 2 picks here. I thought it was pretty easy, the best 5 players in this draft, which was the 3 who have already went, Rudy, Owen, and Parker, and then Conrad and Harrison. I thought were easily the 5 best players in this league. So if I were KJ, I think getting the first pick in this draft is very, very key. And if you can get Rudy, Harrison, and Conrad Comiskey, I would take that and run. That's what I would do. And let's see what KJ opts to do here. And it is that guy, Conrad Comiskey. And I'll tell you right now, KJ has the best 2 catchers in this draft. I mean, catching defense is locked down for this team already. 100%. The 2 best catchers already taken here in the JV league. So through 2 rounds, do you like the combo? Would you take Rudy and Conrad, or you take Owen and Parker when you're picking a duo?
It's hard to bet against the guy who broke the home run season record.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think Rudy would be the first overall pick, but at this point, I mean, I think if you're KJ, you're thinking, do I even risk letting Rudy go to the other side? Because again, I think there were 5 top players in this draft, in my opinion.
I would not be shocked if he went Harrison here.
I wouldn't be shocked either. And he is going to go. He wrote on the top of the card, my guy, Harrison Blebaum, going to the Pinstripes.
Wow.
And I'll tell you what, if you're a 14U Burnstill fan, you might just be a Pinstripes fan. Rudy and Harrison on the same team. Obviously, we didn't see that in BWL last year. They were the first 2 picks, going to separate teams. I didn't think we were going to see it this year necessarily. Harrison and Rudy in the same lineup. The only team that's done that is 14 Burnstill, and we see what kind of success they've had. I think the Pinstripes maybe fall in that formula. And let's see how the throwbacks respond here with 2 picks. Okay, Hank Schultz goes off the board here. When you're talking about two-way potential, Hank Schultz, certainly a very good two-way player. His fall pitching stats are very, very impressive. His hitting, I think he's always been known as kind of a clutch hitter. And Landon Portell goes off the board.
Wow.
So the throwbacks really filling out that pitching staff now. 3 very solid arms in Parker Ells, Hank Schultz, and Landon Portell. Landon Portell, 100 strikeouts in the regular season. And he's a guy who I think is going to succeed in the BWL with a lot of off-speed. I mean, again, sometimes you'll see guys who are very fastball reliant aren't quite as good in the BWL because Bears crush fastballs. But Landon Portell, I think, is the guy who can succeed. Yeah. Landon Portell and Hank Schultz, for that matter, I think are guys who can succeed with a lot of off speed. And again, Landon Portell, Hank Schultz, those are big boy curveballs. Rudy and Harrison, have they seen that type of off speed? We'll see how they react to that. If I'm KJ here, I think you got to take a big arm. Some of the biggest arms left in the draft, obviously, you got a guy like Madden Hammondtree, who's still left over. Colby Lair is a big-time arm. Even a guy like John Armbruster, who's put up some very nice numbers here, especially in the fall. A lot of options here. A lot of options for KJ. I think you got to take at least one pitcher here because the throwbacks could have a chance to really lock out the pitching with their next two picks. They've already got Schultz, Portell, and Els as three of the best pitchers in this league. KJ's got Conrad and Blabaum. And again, Rudy Montenegro-Langley has the potential to be a great pitcher. He could end up being one of the best pitchers in this draft as well. Defensively, I really like how the throwbacks defense has shaken out. Weibrecht, Els, Schultz, Portell, very good defensively. I mean, Parker Ellis has played Gold Glove caliber first base for 16U Floyd this fall. And then you got Hank and Weibrecht on the left side. And I said to get a big-time pitcher. I didn't mention this guy's name, but I should have. It's Alex Vo. This guy was the summer Cy Young for the youth. He's a guy who can play high-level defense. Probably one of the best two-way players left in the draft. Alex Vo goes off the board here in the 4th round. And if you're KJ, you say, hey, you got I don't know what the record was exactly, like 66 and 14 or whatever. you got a team like that? Give me all those guys. Give me 3 of them. Give me Harrison, Rudy, and Alex, who are my first 4 picks. I think that's a great call. And then you got a veteran leader like Conrad to lead the troops there. I love how they've gone with their draft so far. Now the pinstripes back on the board. Again, Madden and Colby, I think, are the best 2 pitchers left, but maybe you're looking for more of a two-way player. Madden and Colby, obviously hitting potential, but maybe not quite the caliber of some of the other hitters still left on the board. Mm-hmm. I think John Armbruster is a very solid pick. Logan Payne, you say Logan Payne maybe could get hit around a little bit in the BWL by throwing a lot of fastballs, but he pitched well in the BWL last year. So we could see him go here. If you're the pinstripes, you're on the clock here, who are you taking?
I really love Johnny A, man.
I like Johnny A too. I mean, I wonder if it's maybe a little bit early for Johnny A. But in terms of two-way players, Johnny A is one of the best two-way players left. Some of the 14 guys, if KJ wants to keep the 14 theme going, you go with an Owen Lewis, you go with a Kenny Douglas. But he's going to go the big bat route. It's going to be Nick Byrne who comes off the board. Big-time hitter. So you grab a big-time two-way guy in Alex Vo, a big-time hitter in Nick Byrne. And I mean, Pringle, this lineup right now, Rudy, Conrad, Blabaum, Vo, and Byrne. I mean, what a lineup the Pinstripes have put together so far. And even the pitching staff. I mean, Conrad, Blabaum, and Vo are 3 good pitchers. Rudy is a potentially Cy Young caliber arm as well. Really like how the Pinstripe draft has started out. But I will say, we have seen in the past, sometimes going with the older guys has worked out in the past, These 4-2 guys, yes, they're amazing. They are unbelievable. I love the way this draft has started. But we've seen Rob in the past go for the more veteran types. Could Rob win this draft with the veterans? Rob has not taken a 14U player yet. He's got Weibrecht, Schultz, and Portell, 15U guys, and Parker Ells as his veteran leader. I could see a Logan Payne going here soon. I could see a Johnny A going here soon. Kenny Douglas, Owen Lewis, probably the top 14 guys left. But if you want to go big arm, it's Colby Lair. Colby was one of the best relievers in the BWL last year. He's been one of the best pitchers in all of the Bears this fall. Love the pick. I think Colby, listen, you talk about what Rob Floyd is good at is getting guys like Colby to play well. I think you could see Colby have a nice offensive jump with a guy like Rob coaching for him. And he's going to stick with the veterans. He's going to go with Nifri Kabarkis. So big-time bat in Nifri, big-time arm in Colby. You put them together. I really like that turn there for the throwback. Colby Lair and Nifri Kabarkis. Big-time little duo for the throwbacks here. And you got to right now, it's basically 14U Burnstill and Conrad versus 15U Floyd and Parker Ellis is what we're looking at right now. KJ does have Nick Byrne as well. But if you're KJ, do you lean into the 4-2 guys? Do we see an Owen Lewis or a Kenny Douglas, maybe even a Braden Young come off here? I like the Madden pick. I'm a big Madden Hammontree guy. I like the Madden pick. I mean, KJ's got a nice pitching staff already. You know, he built his pitching staff. I mean, basically, if you look at the varsity draft, KJ basically had his pitching staff already set by the 6th round, maybe even the 7th round, when he took Zufall, but Zufall was his 6th pitcher. So I think Lucas Velchek in the 6th round, he kind of already had his pitching staff built. He could do the same thing here. He could get his 5th pitcher in the 6th round with Madden Hammontree. Logan Payne, big bat. Johnny A maybe is your two-way guy in this situation. You know, back when I was coaching for the BWL, when I'm drafting, I look at, okay, who's the best pitcher, who's the best hitter, who's the best two-way guy? And that's, to me, the top 3 options. Yeah. Madden's the best pitcher. You got Johnny A as the best two-way guy, potentially, and you got Logan Payne as the best hitter. And then you got guys like Kenny Douglas and Owen Lewis who can be two-way guys as well.
Definitely.
A lot to think about here. You got 2 picks, so give me both picks. If you had the wheel pick here in the 6th, 7th round, who are you taking for the Pinstripes?
I think I take Johnny A for sure. And I would pick my guy, Quentin Choate.
Ooh, Quentin, he's a guy we haven't mentioned. Another guy. I mean, if you've got Quentin and Rudy, you figure one of them is going to figure it out on the mound. I mean, both those guys have sky-high potential. Quentin Choate and Rudy. Quentin Choate just threw 75 off the mound. He'd be one of the hardest throwers in this league. That's not a bad pick at all, Pringle. I kind of overlooked Quentin Choate. That's not a bad pick at all. I would probably take Madden. I'd probably take Madden and Logan if I had these 2 picks. I'd take Madden to certify my pitching staff, and I'd take Logan, who can kind of do it all defensively. And he's going to follow your suggestion. He's going to take Quentin Choate. And I'll tell you what, sky-high potential for sure. You know, I like, especially with my first half of the draft, I usually like to go a little bit safer. I like to take the guys who I know what they can do. He's going to go with a risky pick in Quentin Choate, and now he's going to go with the safe pick in Johnny Armbruster. And you want to talk about one of the biggest risers of the fall. I mean, this is a guy, Johnny Armbruster, who's really done a nice job on the mound. He's shown some potential at the plate. He played well in the BWL last year. I love the pick there. Quentin Choate, Johnny A. Like that a lot there from the Pinstripes. And now let's look over to the throwback side. You got a first baseman in Nifri Koparkas. You got Hank Schultz, who can play third. Obviously, Parker Ellis can play the corners. Owen Weibrecht can play short. Defense is solid. Pitching staff, you got Ellis, Schultz, Portel, Lair. You got 4 big-time arms. And then this lineup. Weibrecht, Ellis, Schultz, Portel, Colby, and Nifri. I do think when you look at the lineup side by side, I think the Pinstripes probably have a tiny bit of a better lineup right now. So maybe you use that and you take a Kenny Douglas, you take a Logan Payne.
I think one of the biggest bats to the left is potentially J.R. Welty.
J.R. Welty's not a bad pick. I would say if I'm the throwbacks right here, I'm taking Logan Payne for sure. I mean, I think Logan Payne, to me, veteran. I think he's the best hitter left in this draft. He can play everywhere on defense. I think this throwback team needs to catch up with their lineup. And I would take Logan Payne for sure. And then you got some options. A guy like a Dom Palucci, good two-way player. He could go off the board here soon. Okay. Throwbacks. Their only catcher on the board, they actually had 2 catchers on the board. They had Hank Schultz and Colby Lair, but none of them are primary catchers. You get yourself a primary catcher in Christian Jenkins. So when you have all these big pitchers, especially, I mean, this is a 15U pitching staff, plus Parker Ells, who's caught the 15U pitching staff more than Christian Jenkins. I don't mind that pick. I kind of slept on that Jenkins pick, but now that it's gone on the board, I don't mind that at all. You've been to a lot of 15U games. I mean, I do think there's, and obviously when you pitched, there is something to having that relationship between the pitcher and catcher. Sometimes we do see in the BWL, you got catchers catching pitchers they've never caught before. Let's see if that ends up working out. And this is the pick I've been waiting for. It's Logan Payne. I think Logan Payne, you know, you kind of saw in the last draft, some of these guys, even though Logan Payne to me is not just an offensive player only. He's a very good defender. He can pitch a little bit as well.
Play anywhere you want him.
But you saw guys like Ivan Saxon and Evan Lancaster fall in the varsity draft. Logan Payne, I think, is a steal right now in the 8th round. I love that pick for the throwbacks. I think it's a great pick. Christian Jenkins for your catching. Logan Payne for your lineup. I like that little sequence there for the throwbacks. And now for me, some of the biggest steals, I did a personal mock draft. I had Matt Hammontree going before this. I had Don Palucci going before this. So I can see one of those two guys going. We talked about some of the late round pitchers in the varsity league draft. Obviously, I think the best player on the board right now is probably Kenny Douglas. He's probably the best player on the board. Ooh, this is a sleeper pick. I'm surprised you didn't mention this guy earlier. I forgot about this guy a little bit. Brand new to the Bears, but certainly sky's the limit. It's Edgar De Los Santos who's going off the board here. And I slept on that pick a little bit. I forgot about Edgar De Los Santos. Certainly big time potential from this guy. And Pringle, I gotta be honest, I haven't seen much of Edgar, and we'll get your opinion on both these picks here. As and there is Madden Hammontree going off the board. So I'll get your opinion here. So for me, I think Madden Hammontree, I think he fell too far. I think he really secures the pitching staff for the 100%. Pinstripes. Love that pick, but I haven't seen much of Edgar De Los Santos in person. I've watched some highlights. Obviously I've talked to the coaches, but you've been watching Edgar. What are your thoughts on Edgar De Los Santos? What do you think he can add to the Pinstripes?
Edgar is freaking awesome, man. He swings so hard. The only thing he does is not keep his head down, but if he gets it...
Huge potential for the Pinstripes. And you figure, kind of like I was saying with Quentin Choate and Rudy on the mound, you figure between Quentin Choate and Edgar, one of them is going to catch fire in any given moment. So now it is going to be Kenny Douglas who comes off the board. In my opinion, the best player available was Kenny Douglas. And do you pair that... Okay, I was going to ask, do you pair that with a guy like Owen Lewis, who may be questionable, availability, but you're actually going to pair it with, in my opinion, the best hitter left in the draft is Don Palucci. Love the throwbacks defense, by the way. I think throwbacks have a very good defense. Looking at the Pinstripes defense, you got Conrad, obviously, is a good defender. Alex Vogt can play short. Madden Edgar is your second baseman. I think the throwbacks have the edge on defense. I think the Pinstripes have the edge offensively. I think pitching staff is pretty close. I think they're pretty close pitching staff-wise. So really, I think this is kind of the biggest opening here in the draft. You take a risk on a guy like Owen Lewis, who, he may only be there 7 or 8 weeks, but when he's there, he's going to be a big-time performer. Potentially, when you're talking about some pitchers later in this draft, you have a guy like Jacob Villette. Sammy Marquardt is a guy who I like a lot as a potential player later in this draft. And then you got several Big 14 players that are still left. What do you do here if you're the Pinstripes? I think, best hitter on the board might be Braden Young.
Monster in BWL last year.
Braden Young was a monster last year in BWL. And that is exactly who's going to go off the board. It's Braden Young, who's chosen here for the Pinstripes. I think he was the best hitter left on the board as well. If you're looking for pitchers, potentially a Jacob Villette, potentially a Hunter Finley, and KJ's going to go with Owen Lewis. The 11th round, not a bad time to take a risk. If you only get 7 or 8 weeks of Owen, you can't really hang that in the 6th round, but in the 11th round, sure, you do that. You make that move. I don't mind that at all. So now, back over to the throwbacks. I think these teams are both very well drafted so far. You got guys like Fitz Dotson, Jacob Lowry left on the board on the offensive side. Pitching side, you got guys like Jacob Villette, Liam Murphy as potential pitchers. And they're going to go ahead and take Jacob Lowry. Jacob Lowry, one of the best courtesy runners in the league last year. He's going to run ruckus around the bases. You know how Rob Floyd and Jackson Bell like to run the bases. Jacob Lowry can certainly cause some chaos out there. I like that pick.
I like that pick.
And again, very high potential of a bat. What was Jacob's numbers this year? Jacob, a 350 hitter, very solid. Extra base hit rate, around 5%. So you got some potential for power there. I don't mind that pick at all. I think that's a good pick here later in the draft. To me, when you're looking at the late rounds, you're either looking at a guy who can do one thing great or a guy who can do everything solid. And I think Jacob Lowry, you get that one great thing in the base running. And now do you go maybe for a Jacob Villette type for the mound? Do you go with maybe a J.R. Welty type at the plate? Maybe even a Fitz Dotson? What happens here for the throwbacks? This is kind of the later ad. And they could draft one of them. You can draft a 13 player in the JV League draft if you find a top guy. Do you have a guy like Owen Haynes maybe sneak into this draft? A lot of options here for the throwbacks. Rowan Damschroeder, another big arm. I'll tell you what, a guy I've really liked watching play. I didn't necessarily see a whole lot of him, but this fall I've seen more of him. Liam Murphy. I like Liam Murphy a lot. He's a guy who can do a little bit of everything. He can pitch a little bit, he can hit a little bit, he can play defense a little bit. I like Liam Murphy. I wouldn't be surprised to see him go here soon. Carson Warner, a guy with some potential. And there is going to be Jacob Villette, in my opinion, the best pitcher left on the board. So a couple of Jacobs go to the throwbacks, Lowry and Villette. You get a guy, great base runner. You get a guy, a very good pitcher. And then you figure it out with the lineup. Jacob Villette, a very solid defender as well. So throwbacks adding some depth here at the bottom of their draft. Remember, if you are not drafted in this league, only over 40 guys got picked up in the BWL last year that were not drafted. So certainly, you're added to the free agent pool. You can get picked up. And KJ said, this is the best pitcher left. It's Sam Oliver. I like that pick a lot. He's a guy who kind of slipped through the cracks in my notes here, Sam Oliver. I like that pick a lot. And there is, in my opinion, the best hitter left in the draft. Fitz Dotson is going to go with KJ's last pick. So any 14U player or below not drafted in the JV League is eligible to be drafted in the Freshman Prep League, which will happen next. This is the last pick here of the JV League draft. So the pinstripes with Rudy Conrad, Harrison Blaybaum, Alex Vo, Nick Byrne, Quentin Cho, John Armbruster, Edgar De Los Santos, Matt Hamtree, Braden Young, Owen Lewis, Sam Oliver, and Fitz Dotson. Love the 14U representation there. The throwbacks, Owen Wybrecht, Parker Ells, Hank Schultz, Landon Portell, Colby Laird, Ivory Gabarkis, Christian Jenkins, Logan Payne, Kenny Douglas, Don Palucci, Jacob Lowry, Jacob Villette, and Carson Warner will be the last pick of the draft here. So remember, any 14 player who didn't get drafted in this draft is eligible for the Freshman Prep League, which will be happening next. We'll be right back here on the Bears Baseball Network for the continuation of BWL Draft Night. Welcome back to BWL Draft Night here at the Cave on Halloween. Very, very exciting stuff. The Throwbacks have the first pick in the Freshman Prep League Draft. The Freshman Prep League Draft is any 14 player who was not drafted in the JV League Draft, as well as 13U. Potentially see some 12U players in this draft as well. Freshman Prep Draft, the Throwbacks on the clock. And when you're looking at the top player in this draft, I think you got several guys who could fit that. For me, I know, KJ put a poll on Instagram, BearsBaseball.network. Who are the first picks in the draft? I put Connor Kennedy. I think Connor Kennedy, when you're looking at the early picks, you want a great two-way player. Connor Kennedy, to me, is going to be one of the best pitchers in this draft. He's going to be one of the best hitters in this draft. Defensively, he can play some first. He can play some second. I would take Connor Kennedy if I'm the Throwbacks, but we'll see what I'm doing. What would you do, Pringle? Who would you take at the first pick of this draft? I know you mentioned J.R. Welty, potentially.
Connor Kennedy's a great choice. I think Rowan Damsarm-Schroeder is also a great choice.
Rowan Damsarm-Schroeder, definitely another one of those two-way guys. To me, again, I told you, if you were here for the last draft, I look at who's the best pitcher, who's the best hitter, who's the best two-way player. To me, Connor is the best two-way player left in the draft. JR, I think, is the best hitter. And then you can argue between Rowan and Connor for the best pitcher. So we'll see. We'll see what the Throwbacks have to do. Throwbacks may be surprised with some of the picks in the JV League Draft, not knowing who they want to take first overall. They've known they've had the first overall pick, and they're deliberating over it right now. So we'll see what the Throwbacks have to do in the Freshman Prep League. Maybe they were thinking like Braden Young would be available here, but Braden Young's already gone. He won the JV League Draft. So we'll see what they decide to do. I think the Pinstripes had a good game plan getting pitching early in these drafts. And with the first pick in the Freshman Prep League Draft, it's J.R. Welty who goes for the Throwbacks. In my opinion, look, he is the best hitter in the draft, in my opinion. I think he's the best hitter in the draft, but, and you look at the other leagues, man, I think you're putting yourself in the back foot by not taking a guy who can pitch. Again, JR, I think, is the best hitter. But I think KJ's got a chance here. Maybe take a Connor and a Rowan. And then the pitching is really starting to fall apart. It's Rowan Damsarm-Schroeder who goes in the second overall pick.
Wow.
So I like that pick a lot. Rowan played for KJ last year. And I know KJ very much enjoyed that player-coach relationship that they had. So rekindling it here in the 2025-2026 BWL season. And wow, a surprise for me. I thought Connor Kennedy would be the first overall pick in the draft. He's not going to go in the top 3 because Jacob Applehans is the pick here for the Pinstripes. And now, I think the Throwbacks just got bailed out. The Throwbacks didn't take Connor Kennedy, who in my opinion is the best pitcher in the draft, and they can get him at 4 now. I don't mind the core. Rowan and Applehans, not a bad core, as Connor Kennedy does go with the 4th pick. But I think the Throwbacks might have just played a little chess there. I think KJ had a great draft in the JV League Draft, but I do think through 2 rounds I prefer the Throwbacks team. They have the best hitter and the best pitcher, in my opinion. I think JR is the best hitter. Connor's the best pitcher. They have the best pitcher, best hitter in the draft. KJ gets 2 very solid two-way guys in Rowan and Applehans. So I like those guys both as players, but I think maybe a missed opportunity there for the Pinstripes. I mean, maybe it's one of those things where KJ just assumed Connor Kennedy would go first and already had his 2 picks made up and didn't even consider Connor Kennedy.
Yeah.
We'll see if that comes back to bite him. The Throwbacks are back on the board. For me, I thought this top 3 was going to go differently. I was going to say I would have rather had the second pick in this draft because I would have taken whichever 2 of JR, Rowan, and Connor that didn't get picked first. But since the Throwbacks get JR and Connor with their first 2 picks, now I feel like you're playing with house money a little bit. So who goes next?
13 guys.
This is probably a little early. Oh, you know who I forgot about being in this draft? I was just kind of thinking he'd get drafted in the last one. As we'll see what happens here. It's going to be Lucas Closter who goes to the Throwbacks. And a guy who I think maybe fell through the cracks a little bit is Hunter Finley, who is probably actually the best pitcher in this draft.
Yeah.
I was kind of thinking Hunter would get drafted in the previous draft. So now that he's available here, I think that he's probably the best pitcher in this draft. Obviously, there's probably some better hitters available, but Hunter Finley has shown potential with the bat. And obviously, pitching-wise, Hunter is a top-notch pitcher. So maybe now the throwbacks give the Pinstripes a chance to bail themselves out. But they're going to go ahead and go with Hamilton Case. Ton of potential there. Probably one of the best three-way players when you talk about pitching, hitting, and defense. Probably one of the best three-way players in the draft. And now it is Hunter Finley. And now I feel like the tides have turned. The tides have turned. Again, there's a reason I'm here on the desk and these coaches are where they are. But I would have taken Connor Kennedy earlier and I would have taken Hunter Finley earlier. So I feel like both coaches maybe made a slight inaccuracy. But now it's all worked out where the Pinstripes now, Rowan, Applehans, Hamilton Case, and Hunter Finley have built a very nice pitching staff. What do you think about the offense there? Rowan, Apple, Case, and Finley. How do you feel about that starting four in your offense?
I think Apple's by far the best hitter on their team. I think Rowan can bring a lot to the table. Rowan, had a slow spring, but really, really put it together in the fall.
I like Rowan's potential. Applehans to me is still a bit of a question mark. Interesting start to the draft. I think the last two drafts were a lot easier to call than this one. And now the throwbacks are going to go with a big-time bat in Cooper Woolen. And Cooper, I'll tell you what, Cooper's had a very nice fall on the mound as well. And defensively, he's probably one of the best first basemen in the draft. I got to say, I think I like the throwbacks draft so far a little bit more. JR, Connor Kennedy, Lucas Closer, and Cooper Woolen. And we'll see who they top it off here in the first 5 rounds. They're going to take Carson Griffith, so secure the catcher position. Also, Carson, a big-time arm as well. Like this start of the draft for the throwbacks. JR, Applehans, Kennedy. JR, Kennedy, Closter, Woolen, and Griffith. Applehans is a pinstripe. Like that start of the draft a lot. We'll see how KJ ends out his top 5 rounds. So keep that throwback top 5 in mind, Pringle. Because I'm going to ask you whose top 5 you prefer. So again, the throwbacks, Welty, Kennedy, Closter, Woolen, and Griffith. The pinstripes so far with Dan Schroeder, Applehans, Case, and Finley. We'll see how they round out their top 5. A guy who could probably go a little bit later in this draft, a guy like Colin Toms, I think is a very reliable pitcher. Probably going a little bit later than this, though. Shooting for the moon, KJ is going to go with Brady Felton. Big time potential with this guy. So with Brady Felton now on the pinstripes, what say you, Pringle? Who do you got as your favorite top 5 so far in this freshman prep draft?
It's hard to argue with the throwbacks right now, man. They have the best pitcher and the best hitter in the draft, and a bunch of good two-way guys.
Yeah, I lean throwbacks as well, but we'll see how the pinstripes respond here. And this is a guy who I was going to ask when he was going to go. It's Owen Haynes, who could potentially be the best hitter in this draft. So Owen Haynes, we imagine, will not pitch at least for the first half of the BWL. So you're only getting him as a hitter. But I think that's probably a pretty good value there. Owen Haynes was one of the best hitters in the draft last year, and he was playing against Harrison Blaybaum and Rudy Montenegro Langley. I think you could argue he was the 3rd best hitter in that draft at times last season. So I do like that little 5-6 turn for the pinstripes. Brady Felton and Owen Haynes. What were Felton's numbers in the fall? What did Felton end up doing offensively?
Felton batted .491, slugged .792, on base .565.
I mean, big-time power bat. That might have been, that 5-6 turn might have been a really nice turning point in this draft for the pinstripes. We'll see how the throwbacks opt to respond. They're going to go on the pitching side of things and take Whedon Hainline. Whedon, one of the best strike throwers in the entire Bears organization, maybe the best strike thrower in the Bears organization. And as he's developed his off speed, I think he could find some more success against Bear hitters. And now they're going to go with Ben Bonchek. And Ben Bonchek recently made the move from the outfield to shortstop, similar to a guy like Owen Weibrecht. So Ben certainly adds some defensive value. And as you're looking at the defense here, you got Closter at 3rd. You got Ben Bonchek at short. You got Apple and Cooper Woolen who can both, or Apple at 2nd, Cooper Woolen at 1st. I like the way the throwbacks team has been put together. But KJ is going to go 3 straight big-time bats and go with Knox Kennedy.
Still looking for a catcher.
3 big-time bats. You mentioned Pringle. Still need a catcher on this team. Hamilton Case just catch a little bit. But you expect him to hopefully be maybe your shortstop. Mm-hmm. Also, Apple would be the Pinstripes' potential second baseman. I don't know why I keep putting Apple on the throwbacks. So for second base for the throwbacks, you maybe have a guy like Connor Kennedy. You're probably still looking for a second baseman. There's a lot of good fielders at the bottom of this draft. But, I mean, Brady Felton, Owen Haynes, Knox Kennedy, definitely going offense there. Mm-hmm. I mean, you don't really expect much from either of those three guys, pitching or defense. But, I mean, mashing at the plate. And the top four guys all pitch. Defensively, maybe still a little questionable. I mean, is Hunter Finley your first baseman? Is Apple your first baseman? Because if Apple's your first baseman, who's playing third? So I do think the defense and pitching is a little bit concerning for the Pinstripes right now. But the offense, I think, is very, very impressive. The Pinstripes back on the board. So let's assume KJ, he's just taking three big hitters. Let's assume he's not looking for a hitter. If he was going to pick some pitching or defense, what direction would he go? A guy like a Colin Thomas?
You know, there's a guy that I like, Ben Willentek. He can play third, first, and he's a catcher.
Ben Willentek, certainly a catching potential guy. Oh my goodness, Cam Pringle, you called it. It's Ben Willentek. I gotta say, I thought he was gonna go a little bit later. But Ben Willentek, maybe KJ was feeling the need for some defense, was feeling the need for a guy who could pitch. And I mean, I don't know what. While we're getting this picking, what were Ben Willentek's offensive numbers like? As the throwback's going to go with the board here with Owen Clark, a little bit of a do-it-all player. How are Willentek's offensive numbers this season?
He batted .438, .563 slug, on-base percentage of .550.
Okay, so a very solid hitter. Mm-hmm. Owen Clark goes off the board here. He's a guy who definitely the potential is there. In fact, let me go ahead and look at Owen Clark's offensive numbers. I know Owen Clark, a big on-base guy, gets on base a ton. Another guy who can be a very good base runner as well. Owen Clark, a 30% walk rate in the regular season. So he's going to be a guy that gets on base. And maybe against, back-end rotation guys who
play a little second,
are unreliable. Owen Clark, another catcher, a guy who can play a little infield as well. I did have Ben Willentek and Owen Clark on my board. I had them going a little bit later, though. I think a couple guys I had going in front of them. But we'll see how the throwbacks respond here. What do the throwbacks really need? I feel like this is a pretty well-rounded team. Pitching staff, Hainline, Griffith, Woolen, CK, Closter. I mean, the pitching staff is pretty solid. The offense, JR, CK, Closter, Woolen, Boncheck. The offense is pretty solid. So really, I think you can take whatever you want here. And they're going to go ahead and take Parker Kugler. So really loading up on the catchers are the throwbacks. Owen Clark, Parker Kugler, Carson Griffith. That's three solid catchers. I like Parker Kugler a lot. I think he was a tiny bit of a downfall compared to where he was in the spring. Mm-hmm. But a guy who I think sky high potential for Parker Kugler. I like Parker a lot. And this is a guy who I had in the back of my mind is when was he going to go? Because I do think a ton of potential here as Rhett Fausto comes off the board. And Pringle, I know you've had a chance to coach Rhett a little bit. Give me your thoughts on Rhett Fausto. And also, you got to coach this guy as well. Jackson J.D. Etter goes off the board. So, Pringle, I know you got a chance to coach both these guys. Sky high potential for sure. Give me some insight here on Rhett and JD. How do you think they're going to fare in the BWL?
These guys are competitors. These guys are legit good ball players.
I've seen Jackson Etter hit. This guy is a big-time hitter. I think he is one of the most slept-on hitters in the entire draft. Rhett Fausto, for me, again, I don't know his numbers off the top of my head. To me, he's more of a project, in my opinion. I think he's a little bit more raw than Jackson for me. But I do think the potential is there for Rhett Fausto. So KJ, taking some swings. I'm a little concerned with the Pinstripes defense. I will say, a little concerned. Here's the guy I thought was going to go earlier. I thought Colin Toms, who goes in the 10th round, was going to go earlier. This is a legitimate good pitcher. Colin, you can question the offense. You can question maybe, obviously, with no outfield. You can question the defense. But I do think Colin Toms has been the best pitcher on the board for a while. I would say since Whedon Hainline went off the board, Colin Toms has been the best pitcher on the board. I think that's a really nice value pick for the throwbacks. and we'll see how they continue with their draft. The Pinstripes lineup is loaded, no doubt. The Pinstripes lineup is absolutely loaded. I question the pitching depth, and I question the defense. So the pitching staff, you got Rowan, Apple, Case, Finley. So you got 4, to me, legitimate pitchers. And then on defense, I mean, I assume Hamilton Case, I guess, is the shortstop. I guess you're going Apple at third, Ham at short. Owen Haynes or Hunter Finley's playing first, and then Knox at second. I guess Ben Valente plays first, but he's got to catch. So I do think there's some question marks on the defense for the Pinstripes. The throwbacks are going to take Colby Howard, who's probably the best hitter left in the draft. He goes to the throwbacks for the 11th round pick, so they get the best pitcher and the best hitter left on the board. I will say, the varsity draft I thought was pretty even. I thought both teams had their strengths. The JV draft, I thought Pinstripes won. But so far in this freshman prep draft, I think the throwbacks have had the better of this draft so far. We'll see if KJ can bring it back with this pick. And Chase Sutherland, you said you needed defense.
Like that pick.
Here's one of the best fielders in the draft. Chase Sutherland goes on the board here. He can play short when Hammy's pitching, potentially playing third or second the rest of the draft. Does Chase catch?
He can do it all, man.
I'll say for some reason I thought Chase might have caught. I could be wrong about that. I know he's a very good third baseman and can play short as well. Like that pick for the defense. Would love to see a pitcher go. I think Colin Toms would have been a good fit for the Pinstripes. You got guys like Lucas Oshitag, Reed Brody still on the board. So here's a guy who could be a potential big-time pitcher. It's Angel Ruiz who goes. Another guy kind of like Rhett, I think is maybe not quite reached his full potential yet, but you love the potential in Angel Ruiz. I know I saw him hit a bomb the last weekend of the fall, and obviously the pitching I think is there. And look, left-handed thrower, but I think he can put him at second base if you have to. I mean, he can field the ground ball. I mean, Angel Ruiz.
Angel can play some second.
He can play some second. He can play some second if you need him to play some second. I know you don't necessarily think of a lefty as being able to play second, but Angel Ruiz can play some second. So as we get here in the later parts of the draft, these are both your picks here?
Wow.
Okay. So the 12th and 13th pick come in together. It's going to be Garrett Perkins, who goes in the 12th round. And it's going to be Big Tuck Ponal, who goes in the 13th round. So Big Tuck, Garrett Perkins, going here at the last part of the draft. To me, the throwbacks had a very solid team, so you can really pick whoever you want. Garrett Perkins, good defender, top base runner. And then Tucker Ponal, a guy who I think real big potential with the bat, can get on the mound as well, and potentially play some first base for this team as well. I really like the throwbacks
I like
draft.
a derby here.
No doubt the throwbacks are going to have to score runs, but I love the throwbacks draft. So with the last pick here in the freshman prep league, and remember, any 13U player who does not get drafted in this league is eligible for the youth league. So the last pick here in the freshman prep league is going to be Brody Wilburn, who goes off the board. So a potential catcher, a potential first baseman, rounds out the Pinstripes draft. Don't mind that pick at all. That's going to do it for the freshman prep league draft. We're going to be taking a quick break here, and we'll be right back with BWL Draft Night with the youth draft coming up next. Welcome back to BWL Draft Night here at the K on Friday, Halloween here in get prepped for the BWL 2025-2026 season. Very excited here, the Youth League Draft. This is for any 13U player not drafted in the Freshman Prep League and then 12U and below. I think this league will mostly be 12U and 11U. Maybe see a 10U or two get picked in this league as well. And then obviously the leftover 13U guys from the previous league can get taken here as well. For me, I actually thought of all 4 leagues, I thought this number 1 pick was the easiest for me. Maybe I'm a little biased, but I thought of all 4 leagues, there was not an easier number 1 pick than this one. And the Pinstripes have the first pick, and they're going to take the Cave representative, Benny Wanner, with the first pick. And I think this is a home run pick. Benny Wanner is a superstar in the making. This guy can do it all. He can hit, he can field, he can pitch. When you're picking a number 1 pick, you'd love a guy who can do all 3. And Benny Wanner can certainly do all 3 very, very well. So now the throwbacks have a chance to respond. And we'll see what they end up doing with their first round pick. And they're going to go with Camden Kraft, who could be the best pitcher in the league. Definitely that type of potential. He's probably, in fact, maybe I don't even have to say probably. Let me look. Yeah. I think he's definitely the hardest thrower in this league. I don't think there's a harder thrower than Camden Kraft in this league. And they're going to pair the potential best pitcher in the league with the potential best hitter in the league. It's Brooks Biddle. And I like that pick a lot. Brooks, definition of a culture guy. You know, these BWL teams, they talk about having good culture. Brooks Biddle is definition of culture. You get arguably the best hitter left in the draft. You got a guy who plays a very good first base. And pair him with Camden Kraft. And Pringle, I'm going to ask you which duo you prefer as soon as this pinstripe pick comes in. I have a feeling, I think KJ was going to take Brooks Biddle. If I'm being honest. I think that's who KJ was going to pick if it got to his spot. I do think a guy like a Wade Kiefer could be a good pick here. When you're looking at some of the 13U guys that are available.
Durbin.
Yeah, potentially a Durbin. Potentially a Aiden Etzkorn, maybe. A guy who could go in this league. I think Wade Kiefer's the pick. I don't know if KJ's going to do that.
Bang.
He is going to go with Wade Kiefer. I love that pick. And all of a sudden, you have the best defense in the league automatically. I mean, you got 2 shortstops. Wade and Benny, elite defense. And maybe KJ's feeling the results of the last league where his defense is not up to par. He gets the best 2 fielders in this draft. I love the adjustments. And that's what how many times do you say baseball's game of adjustments? So what do you take here, Pringle? Do you like Benny and Wade? Or do you like Kraft and Biddle? To me, I think the throwbacks have the best hitter and best pitcher. Well, actually, no, they don't have the best hitter because they don't have Benny Wanner. So they have the best potential pitcher, but a potential hitter maybe. But do you want Kraft and Biddle or do you want Wanner and Kiefer?
I want Benny and Benny.
I'm going to say Benny is the
superstar
prize piece here. He can do all 3. Oh, wow.
Wow.
And this is a guy who I didn't know if he was going to be a 3rd round pick. But honestly, it makes a lot of sense for him to go here. It's Peter Rojek. This guy played for KJ last year in the BWL. I know they had good coach-player rapport, and he picks him back up. Couldn't let him fall past the 3rd round. I like that pick for Peter Rojek. So now, obviously, you look at some of the top 11U players. You know, a guy who I thought was a sneaky pick was Phil Burgess at some point in this draft. I mean, Phil could be the best pitcher in this league. In fact, Camden Kraft and Phil, I think Kraft throws 1 mile an hour harder. I believe Kraft's 58 off the mound and Phil is 57. But Phil could very easily get to 60 the same time Kraft does. So we'll see what route the throwbacks decide to go here. I mean, Blake Nickerson and Phil Burgess I don't think would be a bad little 1-2 punch.
Who'd you say?
A guy like Camden Kramer could go here. A guy like Zane Hall could go in this spot. Another 2-way guy. This is probably a little too early for Trey Leday, but he is one of the best strike throwers in the draft. Probably the best strike thrower in the draft. Camden Kinsey is one of the best pitchers in the draft as well. This is an interesting draft. There's a lot of players who can do. Ooh, how about this pick? Woo! I just listed a whole bunch of names. I didn't mention this guy, but if you've If you've talked to me in the last 2 months, you know I love me some Clay Lede.
Everyone's getting on the train.
And Rob has prioritized getting a catcher really early on in every draft. In the top 4 rounds, he's gotten a catcher in every single draft. He continues that trend here with Clay Lede. I like that pick a lot. We'll see who he pairs it with. Clay, you know, listen, I've been on record saying I don't necessarily believe in clutch. I think guys typically perform the same all the time. But if you want to tell a guy who made me believe in clutch, Clay Lede might be it. He's driven so many runs. And Blake Nickerson will go here in the 4th round. Potentially availability concerns, but if he's here all the time, Blake Nickerson's certainly one of the top players in the draft. I think that's a nice pick there. So Camden Kraft, Brooks Biddle, Clay Lede, Blake Nickerson. I'm not sure how much Blake pitched this fall. Didn't pitch enough innings to be qualified for my little stat sheet here. But I do think Blake has pitched in the past, so maybe you can see him get on the mound a little bit. Clay and Kraft, certainly a nice start to the pitching staff. And KJ's going to shoot for the moon here. I like this pick a lot. It's Phil Burgess. I personally had him going in the 4th round in my little mock draft. He goes in the 4th round here to the Pinstripes. And we'll see how the first 5 rounds for the Pinstripes are going to shake out here. Wow. They're going to go with probably the best pitcher left available. It's Camden Kinsey. Again, potentially some availability concerns. But if he's there all the time, I do think Kinsey is one of the best pitchers available. So now you got Benny Wanner, who in my opinion is the best overall player in the draft. Wade Kiefer, one of the best hitters, one of the best fielders. Peter Rojek, one of the best hitters. Phil Burgess, probably the highest ceiling of any 11U player. And then Camden Kinsey, one of the best pitchers. I like how this draft's shaken out so far for the Pinstripes.
What do you think?
Defense is not an issue. I mean, look, you already got your infield. You got Peter at third, Wanner at short, Kiefer at second, Kinsey at first. You already got your infield. Phil Burgess at catcher. You got your full infield. Your pitching staff right now is Benny Wanner, Peter Rojek pitches some, Cam Kinsey and Phil Burgess. You got your pitching staff. And then your lineup, you're looking at Benny, Wade, Peter, Phil, and Ken. I mean, I like this team a lot so far for the Pinstripes. I like I'm not so familiar with Camden Kinsey's hitting stats. Camden Kinsey,
It's a little bit.
471. I mean, this guy's solid. Nearly a 10% extra base hit rate. Walks more than he strikes out. I like Camden Kinsey. I like that pick. It's a good pick from the Pinstripes. And now here is a guy who, you want to talk about ceiling, you want to talk about one of the top potential in the draft, they're going to take Leo Papin for the throwbacks. I like this guy a lot. One of my favorite players from that 12U age. So Pringle, I asked you which duo you prefer. Let's look through the first 5 picks. So Wanner, Kiefer, Rojek, Burgess, and Kinsey for the Pinstripes. Throwbacks, Kraft, Biddle, Clay Lede, Nickerson, and Papin. Which 5 do you prefer there, Pringle? What are you thinking?
I think the Pinstripes are absolutely dominating so far.
Pinstripes have a great team. I will say the defense looks pretty good for the throwbacks. You got Blake at short, Leo Papin at third, Camden Kraft at first, Clay Lede at catcher. Or you got Brooks at first as well, so you still need a second baseman. Not going to get a second baseman here necessarily, but you do get a big-time bat in Zane Hall. I do like this throwbacks team a little bit. Tough part is I do think, I know I keep saying this, but I think this league was the most important to have the number 1 pick. Because Benny Wanner just fills so many holes by himself. There's not that many players in this draft who can do all 3 at a high level. Pitch, hit, and play defense. And Benny Wanner can. So just getting him just feels like it could put you on such a great step in the draft. So here's going to be Camden Kramer who goes to the Pinstripes. You get your catcher. Get another guy who could be a big-time pitcher. And a guy who's a big-time bat. So you want to talk about a Benny Wanner type player? Camden Kramer, he can do all 3 as well. He can do all 3. That's probably the best value of the draft so far. Leo Papin, I do think is going to be one of the best pitchers in this draft as well. I mean, Kraft and Papin versus Wanner and Kinsey, or even Wanner and Burgess. Do you like the Pinstripes draft so far? Okay. Interesting pick here in the 7th round. It's going to be Wyatt Geldmacher. So, potentially the first baseman for the Pinstripes. No doubt when Wyatt's on the field, Wyatt is one of the best players in the draft. He's a guy who can get on the mound. See how Wyatt's hitting stats came out. Okay. The 7th round pick, you get some more defense if you're the throwbacks, and they'll take Landon Durbin. So some defense going into this one. Geldmacher, 18% extra base hit rate. I do have some availability concerns with Geldmacher, but if he's there, I do think it's a nice value pick in the 7th round. Landon Durbin, defense, fantastic. He had his moments with the bat in last BWL season. Love the way the defense has come out for the throwbacks. I mean, you've got essentially 2 shortstops in Blake and Durbin. Then you got Leo Papin, who's a very nice third baseman. And the throwbacks, going to add a potential big bat here with Landon Hines.
That's fine. That's fine. It's all good.
So 2 Landons, different spellings though, go in the 7th and 8th round for the throwbacks. We know Rob likes to take the older players in drafts like this. So when you're looking at best hitter, best pitcher, best all-around player left in the draft, I do think Trey Lede is the best pitcher left in the draft. And right on cue, it'll be Trey Lede who goes here. In my opinion, the best pitcher left in the draft. Best hitter left in the draft is maybe a lot more open-ended. Oh, wow. This is a guy who could be the best hitter left in the draft. It's Hunter Fallon who goes here in the 9th round. I like that pick.
Great pick right there.
You've coached Hunter Fallon a lot. Give me some insight on his game. What's Hunter Fallon going to be like in this league?
He's one of the hardest workers that I know, and he will do anything that you ask him to.
That's true.
I like Hunter Fallon a lot. I was saying this, last offseason, I thought Hunter was one of the most improved players. I think this year, a lot of room for growth for him. But if he works as hard this winter as he did last winter, this could be a pick that, really pays off in 5 or 6 weeks.
Day one.
So I was looking at who could potentially be the best hitter left in this draft, and the throwbacks pick is certainly one of the guys who I was considering. They're going to go with Easton Taylor. So again, the defense continues to be very strong for the throwbacks. You got a lot of different infielders. Easton Taylor, probably the best hitter left in the draft, now that I'm looking at it. His pitching numbers are pretty good too. 2-to-1 strikeout to walk rate. And here's a guy, big time potential in Owen Byrne. Another guy I know you've coached a lot, Pringle. Yeah, give me some thoughts on Owen Byrne. He's a guy I know you've talked up recently.
Owen Byrne pulls the ball constantly in the air, and I love it.
I love pulled fly balls, especially in the BWL. I think that could end up being one of the best values in the draft. Another overlooked player there. When you're looking at some of the best hitters left in the draft, do you think Carter Ellers stands out to me as one of the best hitters left?
Love Ellers.
Christian Closter with some defensive. Christian Closter really can do all 3 solid. You talk about who can do one thing great or who can do everything well. I think Christian Closter does everything a little bit well. Jackson Frazier, one of the best pitchers left in the draft. You got options here. Torrin Bursdale, a guy who could go later in this draft. And then you're looking at maybe some tenure guys. Does a Louis Marquardt get drafted here at some point? Does an Isaiah Rust get drafted here at some point?
Maybe a Jack Atkins.
Maybe a Jack Atkins. Pinstripes bringing their pick to the board here. And they are going to go with the all-reliable Christian Closter. Do a little bit of everything. I like that. Shore up the defense, shore up the pitching staff. And they're going to take, in my opinion, the best pitcher left in the draft, Jackson Frazier.
Mm-hmm.
So they take 2 guys who, in my opinion, are a little bit more defensive and pitching-minded. So how does the offense look for them? Obviously, Wanner, Kiefer, Rojek, great top 3. Burgess, Kinsey, Kramer, Geldmacher. And here we have the first 10U player going off the board. It's Louis Marquardt.
Well, technically, Philip Jackson Rager.
10U Bell player, first off the board for Louis Marquardt. Like that, but we've seen 10U players play in the BWL in the past. Peter Rojek and Blake Nickerson played in this league last year, and they both held their own. I know KJ was very impressed with Peter Rojek last year. So Louis Marquardt potentially could be a steal this late in the draft. Isaiah Russ, another Big 10U player, I think could go. Looking at the throwbacks roster, Kraft Biddle, Lede Nickerson, Papin Hall, Durbin Hines, Taylor Bernth, and then Marquardt. I do think they could use some pitching help a little bit. Do you think they could use some pitching help? Who that best pitcher is left in the draft? I mean, you got a guy like a Torrin Bursdale, who's a guy I think is going to have big potential here going forward. They're going to go with a guy who definitely could be the best pitcher in the draft, and Fletcher Chastain. Fletcher's a guy who I think offensively, he's had his moments. But yeah, I mean, I don't mind that little turn there. You get maybe a question mark in Louis Marquardt and maybe more of a safe pick in Fletcher Chastain. So in the last, the Pinstripes are on the board here with the 12th round pick. So I'm going to give you the last 5 picks. Who do you think is the best value of these last 5 picks from the 10th round on? With Owen Bernth, Christian Closer, Jackson Frazier, Louis Marquardt, Fletcher Chastain. Who do you think is the best value of those 5?
I think Louis Marquardt definitely has the best value here. I think he's a superstar.
I think definitely potential is there for Louis. Is he going to be overmatched by the older players? I think that's still to be determined. I like the value a lot when you talk about Christian Closer. I think he's going to be on the field a lot more than most 10th round picks. KJ's going to go with a guy I definitely believe in, especially longer term, in Torrin Bursdale. So you say, Owen Bernth, a guy who could maybe pay off in 5 weeks for the throwbacks. Torrin Bursdale, I think, a guy who could pay off in 5 weeks for the Pinstripes. Oh, wow. And with the final pick for the Pinstripes in the 13th round, they're going to take Jack Atkins. Definitely a hard worker. Oh, my God. Here's a name we haven't mentioned yet. With the final pick in the Youth League and the final pick of the 2025-2026 BWL Draft, it's going to be 7-year-old Oscar Marquardt. So that's going to do it here for the BWL Draft Night. Thanks you all for tuning in. Again, if you did not get drafted, over 40 players were picked up from free agency last offseason. So do not fret, work hard, show up to practice, and very easily you can get picked up. But thank you all for joining. This has been the BWL Draft, and we'll talk to you all next time.